Hey everyone, hope you're doing well out there. Thanks for tuning into this, and thanks so much also for pledging to be a part of the Rooted in Service campaign at The Mission Continues. Um, with coronavirus and sheltering in place, and whether you're teaching eighth grade math now, if that's part of your bag, um, it's important now more than ever that we are taking care of each other and sticking to our basic, sticking to the fundamentals, and working together to get through this. And the mission continues. All of us here at the mission continues. Like we believe that individual acts of service across the country can make a huge impact. So what does that look like? A number of different ways, but my wife Judith and I, we're going to talk about in-home composting, which is something that you can do, guess what? At home. So we're going to share some tips on how to get started with that. So Judith, tell us, what is composting and why is it important?
Composting is taking your food scraps, taking your garbage, and giving it second life. So you are taking those things that you would normally throw out and they would go to the landfill, and you are letting them do that decaying process in a controlled environment at home, and then they become fertilizer, and you can use them in your garden, in your houseplants, things like that. So that's what composting is. Why it's important? We need to keep things out of the landfill. Now more than ever, like Marvin was talking about, we are really aware of the fact of how finite things are and how we're trying to give things to really stretch and get their full use. So composting is getting the full use out of everything that we consume. And if you have kids at home, it's a science project. So it works in all kinds of ways.
Sweet. So what do I need to get started with composting?
Can you hand me my peanut butter jar, please?
I can.
Thank you. Okay, so I've lived in all kinds of different places, small places and slightly bigger places. And when I was living in a teeny tiny place, I was like, how am I going to compost? I had a little peanut butter jar, and I put dirt in here and my food scraps and some paper and stuff like that. And I opened it up, threw it in, and I didn't even put holes in it. Technically, it's supposed to have holes, but I would just open it every day and put stuff in so it got air. Shook it up, and then over a little while of time, I had compost. So this was a really great, easy way for me to compost in a small space. Or I went to the dollar store and I got, don't mind that there's cat food in here now, but I got a container like this. And I did compost in something like this, and this was a great, easy way to do composting. You've got a bucket at your feet.
Yeah, yeah. So these Home Depot buckets you can get from Home Depot. Obviously, it's really important that you make sure that you get the lid that comes with the bucket as well. And if you don't have one readily available in your home, a trowel. One of the key steps to composting is turning all of the elements that are inside of the inside of your bin. One other thing to point out, babe, is what does compost smell like?
Oh
Talk
yeah.
about that.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. So when people think of compost, they think of nasty, smelly, like it's dirt and rotting food. It is, but when it's done right, it smells earthy. So
Not funky.
not funky. Not, if it smells funky, something's going off. But it should smell earthy. The balance of making compost is you're gonna have wet and dry. So that means you're gonna have like your dirt and your water and your food, and then a little bit of dry. So maybe some paper and some cardboard and things like that.
Yeah, talk about what goes into your compost, particularly
Perfect.
in an urban environment.
Perfect.
Like this.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you have your composting container, and I know we talked about like some homemade things that you can do at home, you could also get them on Amazon if you're not feeling any of those options. So throw that in there. But how you make your compost is you get your food scraps. So you get a little bit of dirt in there, and you can buy potting soil at a store or order it online. Get some potting soil. Take your food scraps, so things like your extra veggies that you're not using or that are done, you've cut up, and these are the scraps. Coffee grounds, paper, like anything that doesn't have a waxy surface. So no like cereal boxes, unfortunately, those have waxy surfaces. So cardboard. So like if you're getting like a package or a brown paper bag, that type of stuff can go in there. Grass clippings can go in there. Things that are not going to go into your compost pile are your things like bones, bones, meat, fat, dairy, things like that. Animal litter, I know we would love a great place to stick the cat litter, but this is not the place. This is not a good idea.
Yeah. For sure. And just one other thing to call out to that point, a lot of cities and municipalities do composting at scale for that community, where they do encourage, hey, throw bones and cat litter and things of that nature. But when you're composting in your house, do not let throw those things inside of your apparatus that you have going on.
And like a good relationship, compost is supposed to have balance. See what I did there?
I saw it.
So, but corniness, I know. But yeah, it's supposed to have balance. So it's supposed to have a good balance of wet and dry. So like we were talking before, you don't want to have, if you open up your container and everything is moldy or it's wet and like wet, drippy mud, it's too wet and you need to put some dry things in. So like some paper, some cardboard, some things to balance it out. If you open
if you're juicing, the scraps from juicing.
Yeah, those are perfect. Those juicing scraps can go in there, like the pulp that's left over. And if you open your container and it looks like the Sahara Desert and you blow on it and there's dust, it's too dry. You can take a spray bottle of water and spritz some water in there, or just take some wet food scraps. So like you peel some cucumbers, take the cucumber skins and throw them in. Those are wet. And they will help balance it out. And it should look like this nice, dark, loose earth. And it should have like kind of an earthy smell. So if you've ever opened some potting soil straight from the store, open it up and get that like earthy smell, that's what you're going for. It should not smell funky.
For sure. Great. So tell me, so we got this nice balance with our compost, all of these great elements, earthy smells. And it's thriving, now what do we do with this compost, once it's up and running?
Yeah. So now that you have the perfect mix, use it for whatever you need to that would make sense in your household. When I was living in a small household, I had my little houseplants and I would take my little peanut butter jar and take the soil from there and put it in my little plants to make them happy. It's fertilizer, so it's basically plant food for them. If you have a little bit of a bigger space and you have a garden outside or something like that, or you have a compost bin set up outside, you could put that there. If you have a neighbor that is really big into gardening and with all of the COVID-19 stuff going on has not been able to go and get their normal batches of fertilizer hey, if you have enough compost to share the wealth, share the wealth. Call them up and I'm leaving a bag of compost on your stoop. That could be a very interesting gift.
Yeah, so there you have it, composting, organic, natural, kid-friendly, not a lot to get started, balance, and these are some tips to help you get started with that, and with that, get started. And when you do, be sure to take some pictures, share some insights that you may have, keep the conversation going, and also stay rooted in service, #rooted-in-service.
And if you find for any reason like you're getting stuck or there's any thing where you're like, this is not working, go on to Google and type in your question about composting. There's so much information aside from our video about composting that's out there that's really helpful. So it doesn't have to be hard. It can be really easy. It can be kind of fun. It can be therapeutic. So that's something nice.
Yes. Thanks again for watching. And please, we look forward to seeing the cool things you're doing with composting and all the other pledges that are happening. Again, #rooted in service, and enjoy your Earth Day. Thanks again for watching. Charlie Mark.